Welcome, friends and disgraced former dancers, to another spectacular, wonderful episode of the InfoHazard podcast show. Did I say it? Did I misspeak?
You definitely said InfoHazard, but I wasn't going to call you on it. I would have let you roll.
I gotta update all of our graphics. I gotta do all the little distributors. InfoHazard now.
Yes, the InfoHazard podcast show. I'm your host, David, joined with my buddies Phil and Dan. Hi, guys.
Whoop.
Woo!
So, what's new and exciting? Danny, take it away.
All right, I'm going first again, dude. This week, I wanted to talk about the so-called TAKEITDOWN Act, which is a bipartisan act.
Whatever it is. Take it all down, man. Take that. Take it to the system.
Oh, no, dude.
Oh, actually, what is it?
Just wait until you hear about it, dude. You won't be in favor anymore. I'm going to convince you. All right, so it's bipartisan legislation. It's sponsored by Ted Cruz and Amy Klobuchar. You know, perhaps two unlikely friends. You may be wondering why it's called the TAKEITDOWN Act. It stands for Tools to Address Known Exploitation by Immobilizing Technological Deepfakes on Websites and Networks Act, standing for Take It Down. Yeah.
I'm exhausted just hearing it.
Right. This is where they put their real brain power.
Some congressional intern spent an evening coming up with that, you know.
Way more than an evening. Okay, what's this all about, Danny?
All right, so the stated aims are extremely noble. So it's supposed to be like giving people tools to take down like deep fakes of themselves, of images, shall we say, of a salacious nature generated by AI.
Got it. I wish I could take down all those videos of me.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're big YouTube podcast stars now, so it's only a matter of time.
I know. It's like, yeah, these videos of me are all over the place. It's really disturbing. I have a family, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, and we didn't even have to deepfake those. You keep putting them out yourself.
Okay, so go on. So what's the hitch?
So the problem is it requires basically all websites that have any user-generated content at all. So like any like site or app or whatever that uses stuff that people make. So that includes even like messaging apps, obviously like YouTube or like any sort of video site or like picture upload site. But
like
even possibly like
apps?
even like encrypted messaging apps might have to like start allowing like people to, every text message will have like a little report this for like non-consensual, you know, imagery.
So like
and then,
Signal, but also like iMessage and that sort of thing?
Possibly. Another part of the problem with the bill is like the wording is kind of vague and not well written in several key aspects. So it requires every one of these sites that end up qualifying to set up a reporting system for this, and then they have 48 hours to take it down, or they face a $50,000 fine per violation. And if it gets bad enough, they can actually receive prison time. So it'll be regulated by the FCC, and Trump just fired two of the Democratic commissioners that were on it, you know, in a coincidence, of course. So you may notice this is very similar to the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which also has a very similar enforcement mechanism.
I did not notice that.
Okay.
Because I haven't read either of these things.
Well, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act is pretty old. It's from like the Clinton era, which also allows people to report content for violating their copyrights. So like famously, if you put like, you know, copyrighted music in your YouTube video, it'll get struck pretty quickly.
Right. Okay, so what's the problem with this?
All right, so since there's no verification in like the copyright claims, they get like abused like really bad. So the DMCA supposedly has like penalties for like abusing it, but you can basically just be like, oh, I was honestly mistaken, and you like won't get that like any sort of penalty. But the Take It Down Act doesn't even have like that. They're just basically like, please use it in good faith. You know, that's some good legislation. As an example of like how like problematic this is, Google says that 57% of the DMCA notices they received were sent by competing companies, and 37% were just like straight up completely invalid. And so that allows like censorship to happen. Volkswagen in 2015, when they had their emission scandals, they used the DMCA to like take down like lots of videos and like content that was trying to expose that. And
you know, like when that DMCA thing, though, like a lot of YouTubers get hit by that. They put music in your video and then you get DMCA'd. You either re-upload it and start from scratch, or
I hear
But
the
like,
owners of our audio are real trolls.
we didn't mess around with that. It's all David.
David's our musician.
Yeah. But like private equity has been buying up a ton of music rights, so it's really rare for the actual artists who have that music to be registering DMCA claims. It's usually just giant companies who more or less like use that as their source of income.
I mean, presumably it was even before a PE company bought it out, it would have been a record label, which is also maybe not super giant companies, but not exactly the artists themselves.
Yeah, fair enough.
I wish a private equity company would come and try to buy some of my music. Our email is listed below, right?
Yeah. And they could bring value to it too, not just us who are just sitting on it.
Okay, so, these issues seem fairly... Okay, so if it could be only as bad as DMCA, then I feel like it seems like this only applies to salacious images.
Right, but there's no verification at all, right? So like you can just like spam the report on like everything, and the company has to like either have some sort of like AI check, or they have to manually check,
right?
Or
but,
they have to take
yeah.
it down without like even giving it a check because it's too like the penalties are too high to like risk leaving it up if you're not able to prove that it's not. Especially since like there's no penalties at all for like abusing the system, right? People will clearly just like abuse it worse than the one where there are penalties.
Right. But so if that could be made only as bad as DMCA, where there's some possibility of penalty, then
Can I stop you at that phrase? Only as bad as DMCA?
Yeah.
That is like a system that is completely broken, and like the idea of expanding it into personal messaging apps is like totally absurd.
As a user of AI stuff, I feel like it's probably pretty easy to automatically tell if an image is salacious or not. Like, I feel like the accuracy on this is...
It's good enough that companies are willing to bet, $50,000 per false negative, false positive, false negative. False negative is the damaging one, right? Where they think it's not bad, but it is bad. Costs you $50K. Per image.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so Danny, what's your idea? How should they make it work?
I mean, it's a tough one, I suppose. I guess we should I'll put our noggins together here. The FBI can't handle this. Federal law enforcement.
I'm not sure I see a problem with a $50,000 like fine for this for companies. Like, I mean, I've worked at health tech companies. There are large fines for screwing up with people's health data.
And how much do they have to spend on compliance, right? Like, it's another huge expense for like every internet business that's trying to start up.
Well, but okay, not every small company has to do it, right? So I don't know if every single company needs to implement this. You said not every company would.
That's right. We should put more systems in place to ensure that giant mega corporations are the only ones that succeed. Thumbs up.
Yeah, I don't think that is necessarily the effect of this. But
I think it is. Yeah, regulatory agencies are like constantly hounded by the biggest players in those fields. It's called regulatory capture.
Sure.
Plus, like, Facebook is able to like afford to pay moderators to like check all of their content, but a small site may not be able to afford that.
I mean, okay,
which prevents like Facebook competitors from starting up. It favors the big established players instead of small companies.
Okay, so
and Danny
does this apply to all companies?
57% of the DMCA claims were from competitors. So it would be those big firms attacking the smaller firms.
Okay, but this is not about, I mean, just saying this is salacious and non-consensual, right?
Yep, you just falsely report it, and then they have to check.
So just like, there's an image of that it's
Kirby,
not good for my company.
Drinking water. Yeah.
Right.
It could be anything.
Or like if I'm Volkswagen and somebody is like, whatever, revealing like that I have committed a crime, you just call it salacious.
Or you send pictures of your family and like it was the correct number of pixels for the AI to think that it was salacious.
Right. So like, I mean, if I was to give this a fix, I would say I would have harsh penalties and like real penalties for false reporting.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Like because this is a response
a lot.
Because this is a response to like the big companies neglecting their responsibility to prevent this, right? Like
right, which
like
is
their
wrong.
moral responsibility, which they don't do morals, right? So they do money, and so $50,000, right? And now, yes, regulatory capture, sure. Like maybe this would mean I can't start any company that has any user posted content, but I would assume, not having read it, that maybe this doesn't apply to small companies like lots of other regulations, right? Like small companies.
It doesn't seem like it has any carve outs.
And that would be that seems like a pretty big assumption.
Okay, I thought, Danny, you mentioned that this is only for the companies that it applies to.
Well, it's for like all companies that like accept any sort of user generated content, which is like a lot, right? Any sort of chat app.
Yeah, that is Web 2.0. Yeah.
Video or video.
All social media, any company with a forum.
It would definitely, create the possibility that people go around reporting everything, and then you would basically, like, if it was my platform, I'd say, okay, we don't have the capacity to look at it all, so every time something gets reported, we take it down until we have an AI to check if it looks salacious at all with any probability, and then we bring it back, or maybe we have a human look at it. And if someone has reported like 2 or 3 times, I feel like this. But I guess what I'm saying is, this feels like technical work could basically survive this. Like yes, you're risking
something
50K.
with the penalties for false.
Yeah, assuming that you had that. Right. You had that. Because and my point is, like, all these websites, whatever, WhatsApp, you can just like share all kinds of like non-consensual porn, little kids, the problem that is being addressed here is a real problem, and what would incentivize companies to fix it? And honestly, if I have some website, like, I know the last 20 years has worked, like, oh, you can code, make your app conquer the world, like, go for it, forget the rules, forget morality, forget what's good, like, just go nuts. It never should have been that way. Yes, now it's like there are some entrenched powers who are like happy to have like lots of regulation so that nobody else can compete with them. But nobody else can compete with them anyway.
No reason to make it harder.
But just because you're pointing to a real problem doesn't mean the solution that you're pitching is the right one, which is what I think the problem with this bill is, right? Like, they're pointing to a very real problem, but then like their solution has like huge holes in it that seem like pretty intentionally left there. Why would you not like put penalties for false reporting in there? None of these hundreds of representatives and their aides can see that this might be an issue. Did like the bare minimum of research to see like the DMCA is already like exploited this way a lot.
So how far is this bill?
It's already passed
in committee. Oh
no, it's passed by both houses of the Congress, and I believe Trump has not signed it, or he did sign it. This is the one that Melania signed on the lawn or whatever. Because
is Melania allowed to sign the bill?
Well, what's allowed these days. That's barely a blip.
Yeah, that's a distraction. It's interesting, but distractions are interesting. It's
otherwise they wouldn't be distracting.
I refuse to engage with that. Melania signed it. Moving on.
Okay.
Yeah. So this will be the law. Like, sites have some amount of time to implement this, basically.
And you got all mad about the auto pen thing. Okay, never mind.
All right. So
AOC has a competing bill, which she calls the Defiance Act, the Disrupt Explicit Forged Images and Non-Consensual Edits, which basically the way that works is victims of this are allowed to sue the people who made the images, which I do think is like a better, less open to abuse if you just have to you have to at least like take the step of like getting a lawyer and like sending a letter. You can't just like hit this, report button. You have to put your like real name out there in order to...
That seems hard to source with like a.
They can't already to sue people who do this.
I'm not sure. I guess it would be harder, or it's always easier if there's already like a specific law for it. Each individual state has like their own like set of laws. This is like the federal overarching version.
Did you guys read the Nicholas Kristof article in the New York Times? Where he was talking about, I guess it's all one company that is like Pornhub and all combinations of the words like porn, red, something else.
This is like Mind Geek or whatever.
Yeah, some big porn company that basically just like knew that they were hosting all this stuff, this illegal stuff, underage stuff, and they just didn't do anything about it at all.
That seems bad.
Like,
that's
despite
bad.
Right. So, I think, yeah, you wish they could have been penalized $50K per incident, but
I guess. I mean, I kind of, if you're knowingly hosting child pornography, then I think you should be in jail.
well, also a lot of non-consensual stuff, or like a lot of the stuff that, if they don't know who's in it, then they don't know, who can say whether that is a child or not, that kind of thing. Right.
Right. But again,
Also, all these websites they get away with, they say it's not, we didn't distribute it. It's our users, and the users long gone. Can't track them down.
Right. Well, like, would it be like the DMCA where the person sending the material gets a penalty, or would it be the service?
So right now it's like the service is liable for it. I think the user
That's
has
different.
like a different set of,
The service presumably just kicks that user off their platform because they're like, yeah, we're not going to deal with you if that's what you're up to. Yeah, okay, so that's a lot different than the DMCA, right? I guess it's just
no,
that
the DMCA is also like holds the like service responsible if they don't boot it, which is why they're so like, take it down first, think about it later.
right. Yeah, which is probably really the right thing to do, but they need some way to bring things back up quickly and to not be spammed.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll see how it goes then. If it's been signed, if it fits the law.
I'm just thinking about the person who makes a deep fake of, like, me and shares it with their friends, and the friend takes issue with my glorious form atop a car or whatever. I'm doing something weird, and like
PT Cruiser.
Yeah, PT Cruiser. It's mostly PT Cruiser stuff that I've seen. And then their friend didn't like it to the point where they report the person sending, like, with a personal messaging app, I feel like you have to know the person pretty well before you send this sort of material.
You would hope so.
Right. That's a fair point.
One more thing I wanted to point out is, so a Democrat pitched an amendment to the bill which would penalize people who submitted false claims in this system, calling it a common sense guardrail to protect against weaponization of this bill, to take down images that are published with the consent of the subject matter of the images. But the amendment was rejected. So they even thought about making it right, but they made it wrong.
Did anyone offer a reason why they rejected that?
Not that I could find.
Did you see what were the votes on that?
So that was a voice vote, which is, I
so
guess,
they don't count.
Yeah, I don't think they say who voted which way in those.
All in favor, say what's up.
But basically,
Like
this
that.
whole thing pretty much sailed through Congress with not any real opposition, because it really benefited. Like you said, it is a real problem, right? So then anyone who objects to any part of the bill, they're like, oh, you're in favor of revenge porn now, that bullshit thing that they do in politics.
So do we think we'll find ourselves victims of this?
I think so. I mean, don't you get like telephone scams and email scams all the time?
No, I meant so if this is a weapon that lets bots pick content that they don't like that's on public sites and get it removed, well, a lot of people might not like our content because it's so much better than theirs.
We do speak a lot of harsh truths as well. We're very truth to power.
Yeah.
Edgy.
Like that. All right, well, we shall see. Everyone, please report this video.
Please don't report this video.
Well, when does it go into effect? It's signed. It's a law, so...
Yeah, they have
year.
time to implement the, I forget how much time, but they have a certain amount of time to implement the reporting mechanism.
Here's an article. Don't worry, guys. I did not pay the Atlantic. I got a free trial 1 month, and I'm going to cancel it. I already have it on my calendar.
Don't worry, dude. Soon we'll be so big that all these news magazines will be beating a path to our door to get the coveted InfoHazard endorsement.
Oh, well, this is no endorsement, so...
Oh, no.
Beat later. Okay, so it is an interesting article called Something Alarming is Happening into the Job Market. A new sign that AI is competing with college grads by some guy. So here's an image from it, which has been going around to our thousands of audio-only listeners. Let me just describe it for you. So it's called The New Grad Gap, and it's a line plotted from 1990 present, showing the total unemployment minus recent grad. I just can't do words today, though. Minus
mildly
recent.
important for this.
Okay, minus recent grad employment. Okay, so if it's at 0, that means that total unemployment and recent grad unemployment are the same. So it doesn't go up and down when unemployment is high or low, but it goes down when recent grad unemployment gets higher compared to total unemployment. And basically what you see is that around 2010, the graph is at its highest, and for most of its history, it's around 1 to 1.5, lots of fluctuations, basically meaning that total unemployment was higher than recent grad unemployment. And since 2010, it's been steadily going down to where, like, around 2017-ish, it crossed below 0. And it looks very much like a trend, I would say. What do you guys think?
Well,
Definitely
I'd
looks like a trend.
say we did it. We solved ageism. Our elders are finally valued for their experience, and they're kicking those whippersnappers out of those jobs at McDonald's that should be rightfully taken by the greatest generation.
Yeah, what if you graph like people staying in their jobs longer? Does that correlate? Like, are people just staying in their jobs longer and then new grads don't have an in at the bottom because the top's not emptying out?
All interesting questions. So, the article presents 3 theories, and you saw the one that was in the title, a new sign that AI is competing with college grads, which I think is clickbait, because the article doesn't really argue that.
I think it baited your click.
Well, something else baited my click.
And through him, the clicks of many others now.
Exactly. So, I mean, I assume we're going to put this up. I assume, Phil, the title of the episode is going to be like, AI is stealing all the job?
That seems like something I'd do.
We should bait our own clicks, you know? Take a page out of their book or magazine.
Oh, man.
Is AI stealing your grandpa?
Oh, man. By the way, shout out to our 10 subscribers on YouTube.
Woo, we love you.
We only have 3 mothers, so that means, and they only each have 2 YouTube accounts, 2 burner accounts. So there's at least anyway, so there's at least 1 real subscriber out there.
3 mothers and 3 wives. I mean, there's someone out there.
A few people even, dude.
Anyway, you guys are rad. Okay, all right, so here are the 3 theories that this article has. So 1, degrees are worth less now. And by now, starting in 2010, right? Sort of steadily worth less.
I mean, it works with the graph, but why do you think 2010?
Oh, why do I think 2010? Well,
no, I was talking to Danny. Danny, why do you think 2010?
Great inflation. That's when it really took off.
Now, I suppose I'll hear from you too, David.
I think that college has become steadily more bullshit over the last decade. I haven't been there in the last decade. I graduated in 2011. So since I haven't been there, it's total bullshit. But no, I know several professors, and I talk to them, and like, yeah, maybe they're just doing that thing that old people always do, bitching about how like stupid and lazy young people are. But some of them point to like actual trends like grade inflation and how like people who, there's like a Rate My Teacher website, and basically if you want your students to rate you highly, you just need to give them all A's, and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that from like my small sampling of professors who I know, they actually do think that college is getting worse. The administrator to faculty ratios have been getting worse.
Would an administrator agree with the statement that it's getting worse?
It's been getting higher.
Okay.
And who knows what the administrator would think? They're not.
Probably,
honestly.
They don't.
Any college administrators listening to the episode, please comment. Tell us what you think.
Exactly. There you go. And then quiz.
I think people who work at colleges are generally on board with the idea of teaching students, so they're probably aware of the glut of administration versus the need for quality teaching, even if they aren't, even if they're directly, it's like how you can move into a neighborhood and gentrify it and then be aware and opposed to the gentrification of that neighborhood.
Right, so what are the other 2 theories?
Let's see. AI replacing new grads is another theory. I'm curious, what do you guys think? Could AI replace your like the entry-level version of your job? Danny, I already know like that it's impossible for AI to replace your job. That is self-evident. But Phil, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, certainly aspects of my job. I find that like companies that implement AI to wholesale replace positions tend to regret it. AI is not good at starting projects, and seeking out things to do.
Thinking critically about the things that it has said.
Yeah.
Do you think new grads do those things though? Because we're talking specifically
I
about
think
new
I
grads.
do. I mean,
Sometimes.
I absolutely think that like not only do people, find innovative solutions to workplace problems, but new grads especially do because they have unique skill sets that have not been introduced to the workforce yet.
And they're motivated.
Yeah, they're
right?
not dead inside
And they're
yet.
motivated.
Right. I mean, yeah, in the first part of that graph, saw like historically new grads would be more employed or, employed less often, unemployed less often than the general population because you have to pay them less and they're motivated. They're not dead inside yet and they don't have, kids to go pick up from school so they can stay all late into the evening.
Maybe that's it, dude. The new generation is just too cynical, dude. They're not willing to burn the midnight oil for their corporation anymore.
I'm old enough to be on the other side of it. I have like people coming to my office pitching projects to do and like asking me for like help on things, and I'm like, "Gah, it's a job. Shut up."
All right. So we need new grads to comment on this video. What do you think? Any new grads listening?
Oh my gosh, damn. Easy.
Engagement. Natural, organic engagement, dude. It came up organically.
Or inorganic engagement.
Yeah, bots, please comment. We'll take anything.
Yeah, I'm a software engineer. It's kind of interesting that, if you sadly have been on LinkedIn in the last 3 years, then, you might be surprised to hear that there still are software engineers and that it's not just AIs. And this is the year of agents, which is large language models running in a loop.
I thought it was the year of the rabbit.
That too, yep.
Different calendar. This is the
Right.
Tech Bro calendar, not the Chinese calendar.
Right, the tech marketing calendar. Yeah, anyway, I mean, LLMs are useful tools for programming. They are absolutely 100% can't be trusted to complete any task. It's just so laughable. It's just not at all there. Oh, man. Anyways, so that one's funny. And I mean, also, the trend started in 2010, and, okay, AI, I've been working on AI since back then, but we're not talking about, no one back then thought, wow, this is so disruptive and it has arrived and let's lay off all the marketing or whatever. So yeah, I think it's just kind of silly to say that this is about AI.
All right, so what's the third theory?
The third theory is basically didn't quite make, okay, let me try to put words to it. It doesn't make sense, and yet it might be right. Or I'd say maybe it doesn't count as a theory. Here, let me just stop.
All right, they put words to it, right? Just read their words if you need to.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to paraphrase. I have.
Maybe you should quote some guy from The Atlantic, as you so generously credited him.
He's going to send this video to his mom, dude, and he's going to be, look, Mom, I made it.
Yes, right. I was finally quoted in InfoHazard. Sure, they didn't use my name. Okay. No, basically the argument is that the Great Recession never ended, and it all just has kept going and kept getting worse, and it got worse again during COVID. He mentioned that grad school or law school applications are way up this year, and that was another thing that happened during the Great Recession because people couldn't find jobs, so they decided to go to grad school. I graduated in 2011, which is, I guess, the near aftermath of that. But I wanted to go to grad school. I didn't look for any jobs. Well, I was curious what it was like for you guys graduating back then, looking for jobs.
I mean, my first job out of college was as a swim instructor. I managed to pick up my high school summer job before I picked up a career, and I never got something close to my degree.
I mean, our podcast is basically fine literature here.
There
right?
you go. So you finally got a job.
It's true.
with that your education was for. So then geology was a minor?
It was a minor because I hit the credit limit.
Also, minors love geology, dude.
Fucking got him, dude.
Nice. Okay, so it sucked. All right. I'm sorry about that. That sucks. Apparently, it still sucks.
It was bad for it was worse for other people. I mean, I did eventually get a job, so you know,
True.
had my wages suppressed, I imagine, because I was more desperate for a job. So that has probably had a permanent effect on my career. Like, I will forever be behind my peers of different graduating
Generations.
classes because I graduated college when there was like a great degree of wage suppression.
How about you, Dan?
Well, I was lucky enough to not have to look for a job right away after college. I saved up a bit of money and I took some time off. And then by the time I found a job, it was like 2014 and the economy was like pretty well heated up, at least for software engineers. So I ended up getting a job through Phil, actually. His mom recommended me to somebody that she knew, and I got a job that way. Nepotism, that's the way. Unironically, it really is the way.
It is and has always been.
I don't think I've ever gotten a job that without a referral. Yeah. So anyway, if anyone needs a job referral, leave a comment. No?
Yeah, my favorite podcast hosts recommend me as a great resume builder, dude.
Nice.
Indeed.
We will recommend you.
So I'm interested. Like, it didn't sound like you had like a real strong conviction about Theory 3, and like recessions are things that tend to be defined by economists. Like, there's like certain indicators you look for, and then that equals recession. So I mean, it has a certain sort of emotional truth to it. Like, things have just been bad and they've just gotten worse. But like, if you look at the employment numbers, it doesn't really match that theory.
Right. Yeah, my problem with the article is just that it didn't actually get into any like explanation of what he meant. Like you say, the recession is long over, but like I could definitely believe that things changed structurally that made new grad type positions less important, or like that gave them less budget for that. I could definitely believe that kind of thing happened. Certainly with like software, not since 2010, but in the last couple of years with the interest rates going up, like the market for new software engineers has gone like really downhill. And it's the combination of the less money, less capital available, and the rumors that AI can just do our jobs.
AI probably only in rare cases is wholesale taking someone's job, but what it probably is doing is making people a little bit more efficient at the job they're already doing, allowing you to kind of cut staff on the same projects.
Staff are 10% more efficient, so you keep 9 guys and fire the 10th.
The 10th guy you beat with sticks, right?
Like, I don't think that there's a lot of evidence of this. Like, I think that like this is like clearly happening some places, like marketing and call centers, and like I think there are some jobs where this is really clearly happening. Even in software, like even though large amounts of code like are being written by AI, they have to be like most of the stuff that is written by AI is like has been very obviously teed up by a human and then verified by the human. So do I think that I'm 10% more productive with AI? I don't know. But do employers seem to think that I ought to be doing more with less? They sure do. They always seem to have thought that, I think. So yeah, I think there is definitely a perception thing there from employers that like, well, AI just does everything. Why do I need to pay employees?
I wonder if like old-timey technological advancements had this. But we just got that fancy new cotton gin. Surely you only need 2 people.
I mean, but that did happen. Like that's why factories are filled with robots. It's just that AI is the newest version of that, and like is subject to similar limitations. You still need people around to watch the robots, and you still need people to set up the AI prompts.
Yeah, we're still like working through it. Like, I mean, yeah, there are definitely cases where like AI makes you more productive. There are definitely cases where it makes it way worse, and it's just like it still requires skill to know the difference. In software, I can definitely see the argument for having less junior people. Junior people need a lot of supervision also, and junior people are less experienced, like are more likely to just trust the AI and create bigger problems. But I haven't really seen this play out in like a we're not hiring people anymore kind of a way. I don't know.
Got it.
All right, what do we have next?
I wanted to return to two things we talked about last week. Which branch of government is the worst, and the Big Beautiful Bill.
Okay.
The Big Beautiful Bill recently passed the House, so RIP to Jerry Connolly. Not the first Democrat congressperson to die in office this year, so I guess we'll just keep electing people who have cancer and are on death's door. I hope that last election was worth it, you fucking old bastard.
All right, Phil, take down that cancer patient, dude. He's already dead, but you can bury him.
Anger issues, Phil. Anger. Did you take your pills before this episode, Phil?
No. I've been sipping haterade out of my notorious RBG mug. I have had some time to think about this, and I want to make my case for the executive being the worst branch of government. And I don't think it's close, and I think the argument's pretty simple. So, would you rather have a government that does nothing, or would you rather have Trump?
Probably a government that does nothing. I see what you're saying.
Like an executive that does nothing.
No,
like your whole government overall does nothing because you have no executive
whole government,
branch
or would you rather have
purely legislative,
like, a raving lunatic in office?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I would just say, yeah, okay. That's right. But I think the fact that Congress does nothing allows Trump to do what he is, right?
I'll get to that.
If they did their jobs, then they would impeach him.
or like not pass laws that give such unchecked authority to the executive.
Right. Or they would investigate his criminal conduct, right?
That too.
And he's like probably the actual worst example of a president in American history. There's some real winners in the list, but let's just say I'm using an exaggerated negative example.
Mm-hmm.
But the Congress is also functioning about as bad as it ever has. It's like a pretty apt comparison. They're only really competing with like Missouri Compromise and Bleeding Kansas era Congress,
Sure.
It is like you say, the legislative branch, their failures are related to the executive. Their failures are at least as much a fault of the executive branch. There's been sustained overreach of the executive basically since the first president, and I think this flaw is sort of inherent to the Constitution.
Sorry.
So many.
You mean since George Washington? Is that
Yeah.
There's been overreach since George Washington? Well, I mean, at some point, is it still overreach?
Yeah.
It can be in our opinion.
You signed the Constitution, then you set out the powers, and then immediately, he goes and sends out guys to put down the Whiskey Rebellion,
Plus, this act that Trump has been invoking, the Alien Enemies and Sedition Act, was like a big debate about the executive power back in the day, right? When they passed it.
Okay, yeah. Sorry. Okay, maybe okay. So you mean just like relative to like what actually the Constitution says, they like clearly do more things than they've said.
Yeah, they've been overstepping those powers since the beginning.
Okay, I agree with that. I just was thinking that like also it seems like they've been stepping it up over the last 20 years, and that's what I thought you were maybe that's maybe what I thought you were talking about. And so that's more like a relative to norms, but sure, relative to the Constitution, clearly they're all overstepping.
It's as bad as it's ever been, but it's never stopped escalating. So I mean, those
like
kind of go hand in hand.
It's like that part in Office Space where he's like, every day is like worse than the day before. So anytime you see me, that's the worst day of my life. Executive overreach is worse every day. So every day that you look at the U.S. government, that's the worst that executive overreach has ever been.
I didn't realize how strongly the movie Office Space has influenced me in my in our show. So there's really important powers given to the president, like enforcing the laws. They have like this position of privilege over the military, and that's kind of the most important power, and you're giving it in the most concentrated branch. Democratic institutions are slow moving, so if they ever want to check the power of the presidency, they tend to lose because the president can just keep moving. You can just keep saying stuff, and people have to follow his orders, and the legislative has to kind of round together a bunch of people and try to forge an agreement. It was like, okay, do we agree that this bad thing that the president is doing is bad? It's like, well, we have to call a quorum, and it's like, and meanwhile he's off there like sending people off to prison camps and El Salvador, or taking $400 million bribes or whatever. Like you can just keep going. He floods the zone, right? Like, and that's not just a Trump thing. That's a president thing. It's the way the system is set up. The president is meant to act fast, and because the president can act fast, the president can keep taking power away from the legislative.
Well, but hold on. Okay, so the president is meant to act fast. That's right, because they're supposed to be powerful. That's right, because they're supposed to get shit done, right? Like, okay, but they're not taking power. Like, Trump isn't taking power away from the legislature. The legislature
taking power away from the legislature.
The legislature, only by like calling Ted Cruz's wife fat, right? When
he does stuff like fire, the entire Department of Education, when like Congress said in the budget, there's this much money that should be spent.
They could impeach him. They could impeach him.
They could impeach him.
They could investigate him. They are not using their power. They still have
You're. It's like victim blaming, like what you're doing here. Like, no, the president is the one that's causing the problem. Like, the fact that the legislative branch is doing a bad job at fighting him doesn't make the president not the worst actor in this situation.
They have every ability to stop him. He hasn't taken power away from them.
All right, so
they are just not doing. They're saying, "Oh, we don't do anything."
To analogize, like, is the criminal worse, or is like a cop who stands by and watches the criminal do crime worse?
The cop is worse.
The criminal.
The cop is complicit. The cop is saying that, well, we need to have lots of crimes happening here. Like, let's do lots of crimes, right? Like, it's intentional. Yep. The courts take power too, right? Like because Congress doesn't do their jobs at all.
I think that we've come to a subjective moral disagreement. That may not be convincible.
Yeah, I don't think there's really anything. Well, I'll say this.
Also, I think we all agree that both people in the situation are bad: the criminal and the cop.
Okay, here's
Don't
another.
Don't blame the player. Blame the game.
I'm blaming the game. I'm in the process of blaming the game.
Okay, all right.
Like, this is the crux of my whole argument. Like,
okay,
the president is the most anti-democratic institution in the government. That's the presence of the presidency in the government necessitates or highly incentivizes a two-party system. Because in order for any political party to get any amount of influence, they need to unite into giant blocks so they can put forward a candidate that has some chance of winning the presidency, because he holds all the power. That, like, because there's a presidency, there's a two-party system. Because there's a two-party system, there's a massive reduction in the amount of political diversity that there could be in this country.
Okay, but what's the problem here? Sorry, I missed the part where there was a problem. So, okay, in order to become president, you need lots of people to vote for you. And so therefore you need to like build a coalition, and you need to have big coalitions, and
right.
So
eliminating all of the potential like political groups, like all of the political parties that could exist don't, because they have to kind of band into giant blocks that don't really serve their interest.
Okay, and so this is a problem with the presidency.
With first past the post in general, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, it's right, even in
most
Congress.
important for the presidency because they have basically all the power of the government. So there's like no point in having like a third party like take a Congress seat in Wyoming or whatever, because like the party is just irrelevant on the national stage unless they have the presidency.
Well, but wait, why? Congress is Article 1, baby. They're the ones who make the laws. Like they can pass crazy laws to make it so people can't do like porn deepfakes, like non-consensually. That wasn't even the president. That was Melania and Congress.
The president has the right to veto any bill that he wants to.
Okay, but the Congress can override it. So like, what do you mean it doesn't matter who's in
majority.
Congress? Right. Which, like, if the president is
When's
saying no.
When's the last time that's happened?
I don't know. When's the last time that happened?
The TAKEITDOWN Act passed with like only one dissenting vote, so it can happen. Legislature can come together.
Right, but there was no veto there. Yeah, so I mean, I think mostly they just don't bother to veto, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know when the last veto was, but Yeah, so in this case, the president had no power, right? 99% of the Senate passed it.
Yeah.
So the president was irrelevant. This was all Congress.
In this case, yes.
Right, and it could be in more cases, like they have the power.
Okay. That's the fact that the Congress has passed a bill does not mean that the Congress is equally powerful to the president.
I mean, I think the Congress is, well, I mean, I think you'd have to
Your
say
argument is that the Congress is just as bad because they're letting the president get by with all this stuff and not doing anything. Could the Congress stop them? We've seen
Yes.
Congress impeach the president twice to no effect.
Well, they didn't convict him. You know, the Senate, they couldn't get enough full 2/3 together. Like Nixon left because he was going to get impeached. He was told that they had the votes to impeach him, so he resigned instead. Can happen, but, you know, then they started Fox News and a whole propaganda effort to make sure that it won't.
Anyways.
Right, so, yeah, so Congress should be, so because of Fox News, Congress doesn't work. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Congress absolutely has the power to impeach him, but I'm
Look,
a
if
little
we
confused
had
about your point.
like a parliamentary system instead of the president, like there could be more diversity of political thought. Like there could be more smaller parties that have like a say in their area, but like they're sort of pointless in the U.S. system because the president wields the majority of the power.
So the last presidential veto was in Trump's first term, January 1st, 2021, when the U.S. Congress overturned President Donald Trump's veto of the National Defense Authorization Act.
So they overturned his veto. See, they're capable of overriding a Trump veto. Yeah, it's interesting that the president is too powerful.
Yeah, and it's an inherently anti-democratic institution.
I mean, he is elected, right? So it's not that anti-democratic.
Right, but if he wasn't elected, like there could be a more democratic form of government. Like if there wasn't a presidency.
Right, and so okay, can you go into a little bit just like what is so the parliamentary system? Not super familiar. You know, just because I write constitutional amendments as for fun doesn't mean that I like research existing constitutions. But let me like give my like understanding of what this is. In like
it's
England,
not really what I was trying to get into today. I'd have to like do more research into like other forms of government. I just think that like the legislative is closer to seemingly more functional representative democratic systems, parliamentary systems in like the UK, Canada, Greater Finnoscandia.
Yeah, I was. I didn't necessarily think that those systems seem to work any better.
Speaking of institutions that could challenge the president, you got the Supreme Court, but prepare to kiss that goodbye because in the recent budget bill there is a special little treat of a provision. I'll just read verbatim. It says, "No court of the United States may use appropriated funds to enforce a contempt citation for failure to comply with an injunction or temporary restraining order if no security was given when the injunction order was issued."
What does it mean? Do you know that if no security was given? Do you know what that phrase means?
It means money. It means money. Like the plaintiff, basically like a reverse bail or something. It's like you put up some money before you can go and hold the people in contempt, so that in case on appeal it gets overturned, they get compensated for the harm done to them by having to sit in contempt. Is that basically what it is?
That's basically it. Yeah. So it refers to a little further. It says, if no security was given when the injunction order was issued pursuant to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 65C, whether blah, 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 blah. So 65C. The court may issue a preliminary injunction or a temporary restraining order only if the movement gives security in amount that the court considers proper to pay the costs and damages sustained by any party.
The next part, though, seems important too, though, right? The United States is never required to give security, including its officers and agencies.
Right, but in this case, it's not the United States that would be... This is only plaintiffs.
But the first part says you can only basically hold them in contempt, really, if they give security, and the U.S. and its officers never give security. So therefore, the U.S. and its officers can never be held in contempt?
No. The other side gives security. right? So, like, say the ACLU is suing the U.S. because Trump is breaking the law, and then the judge finds, yep, or sorry, this is a contempt, right? Sorry, so they're suing them, and during the court proceedings, they hide evidence, they lie in court, they ignore court orders, they do all these things that they've been doing that would justify contempt. And so I guess this is saying that before you can actually hold them in contempt, then the ACLU would have to put up money to cover a security in case there are damages to the U.S. by holding their lawyers in contempt.
Right. So that amount is subject to, like, the judge. The judge gets to decide, like, how much security the plaintiff, right? That guy?
Um,
In this case, yeah.
Yeah. The plaintiffs need to put up. And in these cases of, like, constitutional violations, the judges very often choose to put up a security of 0. And that is, I guess, like, this is tough because it's, like, kind of inherently in the legal minutia of the thing. I have some statements from a professor of law, a constitutional law, I think, from Notre Dame, Professor Samuel L. Bray. He calls this provision under-inclusive, over-inclusive, and likely unconstitutional, and continues to say that the law is probably unconstitutional as an attempt to interfere with the inherent power of a court of equity to enforce its decrees with contempt.
Yeah, it does seem weird. It seems very weird that the plaintiff would be on the hook for this because it's the court that is holding someone in contempt. Like it's not the original crime that they're being found guilty of. It's like fucking with them in the proceedings is what they're. So it does seem very weird.
Yeah, it's like it's a way of financially punishing people who challenge the government, basically. Like they, like this recent example where Kilmar Abrego Garcia was, he is extradited to El Salvadorian prison.
Deported, not extradited, right? Because he wasn't accused of any crime in El Salvador.
Well, he wasn't. He was. It wasn't extradition or deportation. It was It was rendition. He was just put in a prison.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. So that's different than. Yeah, extraordinary rendition. It's like what we did like Al-Qaeda people around 9/11.
Danny, do you have any other
Al-Qaeda
vocab
people.
words to add to this conversation?
I mean, he's got the right ones.
Dude, yeah, he fucking crushed it, Phil.
It's not like when you give an extraordinary rendition at karaoke. A Freebird, it's much darker and more depressing.
So they, so he was mistakenly deported. It was rendition, but doesn't matter. Court's like, can't do that, and then the president's like, okay, I'm just gonna do it anyways, and it's like the court's like, you can't just ignore what I say, I hold you in contempt. So I think what would happen in the next case of someone getting black bagged out of the country would be like the family of the person who got taken out of the country would have to put up a bunch of money in order to
secure,
like, say, like, don't steal my my husband away or whatever. Like,
in addition to paying a lawyer.
In addition to paying a lawyer.
Right, but yeah, I mean, yeah, this is just so weird because, like, it's not, I mean, this isn't even the thing, the family of the victim, they're not going to be suing them for ignoring court orders. They'll be suing them for wrongfully deporting the person.
The judge to put them in contempt. The judge just decided to issue a statement of contempt, or right?
Yeah. So anyway, so like just blatantly, okay, this is a Republican inserted piece of shit little snippet. The point is to make it harder for Trump to be held accountable for breaking the law and to basically scare people off from even trying, and fuck them, off to hell with you, and probably your law is going to get struck down whenever it has a chance if it doesn't get altered in the Senate. Is the Senate gonna, have they gone at this yet?
So it did pass the House, but no, the big beautiful bill is still winding its way through the Senate.
Mitch McConnell will save us, bros.
Mitch.
Turtle.
Yeah, maybe this will be subject to horse trading. It's like, okay, we'll compromise. We'll give $50 billion more to Elon Musk, and in exchange, we won't throw away the power of the Supreme Court. Deal?
All right. Do you guys have any opinions that are probably super outre and people would like never ever agree with, and would look at you like you're an insane madman?
Yeah, let me
for
just
holding
stop
them?
recording real quick.
Don't be a coward.
I have.
I'll say mine if you want me to start it off.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
intrigued.
I wasn't ready, but could you just define outre?
Like, really out there and wild.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
your hottest take.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
All right,
Spicy
here-
takes incoming.
Here's mine, dude. I think we should bring back pork barrel spending.
That's a pretty common. That's a very common take, isn't it?
You think so? You think people would agree with that? I don't think
Yeah,
so.
they're
but
like
pork barrel
that.
spending was like way hated, and everybody was glad when it was gone.
Right, but then they were like, "Wait a minute! Oh, now we don't do anything."
Yeah, I don't think they've thought that deeply about it.
I've heard that take before somewhere else, or maybe it was from you. Have I spoken with you before?
I definitely got it from other. Like, I'm not the first one to think of this, but I feel like most people would not agree with that.
I feel like there's got to be a better way, like for example, randomly select the Congress people.
Yeah.
Just like
That's
have
different
people
than
who.
my hot take.
Yeah, let's hear yours, Phil.
Oh, I was just gonna say something racist. Just kidding.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Phil's like, I don't think women should have been allowed to vote.
Well, actually,
Okay, well,
Hitler.
Just clip that. And that's our short. No, there's gotta be a better way. There's gotta be a third path.
Congress
No,
won't
maybe-
cooperate unless you bribe them, dude. So let's at least get like new schools and shit out of the bribing instead of just inflating congressional salaries unofficially.
Maybe
Dude.
if we have like armed citizens brigades that follow around Congress people and make sure they don't take bribes.
That's a spicy one, Phil.
Maybe slightly. I don't know. Maybe that is a spicier take than make the government work again. It's a different way. It's a different method of doing it. Radical bottom-up version of it.
So I heard. Well, I don't have it. I don't have takes. I don't have opinions. I only have self-doubt. Like here's some
No.
self-doubt.
I was arguing with you. You definitely have opinions.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I do strongly believe that Congress is insanely broken and the most broken. But that's okay. No. So here's one. The Clintons were corrupt in a way that is not as bad as Trump, not as large as Trump, but was very problematic and like
Sure.
similar in kind. And also,
So
and
people have pretty diverse opinions on what the Clintons actually did. Could you give like an example of like a real thing that they did?
Right. So, like, for example, like, I think, like, taking hundreds of thousands of dollars for speaking fees while you're in office, or, like, is kind of it's like a proto-Trumpian kind of a thing, honestly. And also, I mean, right, large donations to their foundation while they're in office including from foreign governments. Even if you can't point to the exact quid pro quo, just like we don't know what it is that Trump is going to do for Qatar, it seems very similar. And like it's like missing a couple zeros. If you can get hundreds of thousands of dollars on a speaking gig, then you're like almost as big as InfoHazard, and you're like way bigger than an ordinary like American. It just puts you in a different class of person. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think that was really
I can't even
fucked up.
imagine I wouldn't do this podcast at all if it wasn't for all that money we're getting from the Soros Foundation.
That's
AI can't take our job yet.
dude. AI can absolutely podcast.
But not as well as us, dude. We're artists of the form.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Yeah, that's true. Speak for yourself.
You know that YouTube scrapes our data and they have like suggested topics, and that suggested topics are like it's like, how can you prepare for like AI in your workplace, or what do you think about AI? Can AI have feelings?
20 years from
Google.
now, will the streets be filled with unemployed YouTubers after AI takes their job? You'll see Mr. Beast out there, begging bowl in hand.
Yeah.
Good.
And people will only ever give him just bars of his shitty chocolate.
Have you tried it?
I just hear it's shitty. I don't know. Maybe it's great. Actually, I want to go on the record and say I'm very pro Jimmy Dore, aka Mr. Beast. And that should cover it. Now we'll get famous because we'll get promoted by Mr. Beast. And
All right, we have anything else we want to cover?
I want to cover my ears and eyes and scream.
Very fair. It's been some hazardous information.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in. You should leave comments. For everyone who accidentally subscribed, you should not unsubscribe. I know it's hard on a touch screen. Drop your phone.
I'm sure all
Anyway.
of the accidental subscribers are watching to the very end of our video for this exhortation.
Anyway, catch you next week.
For all of you swiping through content and have stumbled across this in between camping tutorials, you're a real one for making it this far. We love you very much.
All right, later.
Bye, everyone.
No bye-bye wave for me. That's not dignified.
I'm dignified. Ooh, look at me, David. I'm dignified.